It started with a whisper, then a live stream, then a single word that shook everyone watching: DNA. Late at night, Tasha K went live, eyes locked on the camera, voice calm but dangerous. She didn't scream. She didn't joke. She said one sentence that changed everything. This isn't a rumor anymore. There is a test. Within minutes, social media exploded. Screenshots flew. Clips were reposted. And suddenly, Tamar's name was trending for a reason no one expected. Not music, not family drama, but a child test, one that allegedly involved Mendeecees. Fans froze. Critics leaned in. And Tamar? Completely silent. Then came the chaos. Mendeecees allegedly denied everything, calling the claims insane and disrespectful. But just when people thought the story would die, Funky Dineva stepped in, and instead of denying it, he confirmed parts of the timeline. That's when things got scary. Because when Funky confirms anything, people listen. And then came the final bomb in the hook. Sources began whispering one chilling detail. The court is watching. No documents leaked. No verdict announced. Just one terrifying possibility. This wasn't just internet mess anymore. This was about to become legal. And the biggest question hung in the air. Backhand index pointing right: if the DNA test isn't real, why is everyone panicking? Backhand index pointing right, and if it is real, who's been lying all this time? Cut to black. To understand why this DNA bombshell hits so hard, you have to look at the long, complicated emotional history connecting everyone involved. None of this came out of nowhere. In fact, many fans now say the signs were always there. They just didn't know how to read them. Tamar has spent years living under a microscope. Every relationship, every friendship, every argument has been dissected online. She's been praised for her honesty but punished for her vulnerability. Over time, Tamar learned one hard lesson. Anything you don't control can be used against you. That includes love, family, and especially children. According to people close to the situation, Tamar has always been extremely protective when it comes to her child and anything connected to motherhood. That's why the moment Tasha K mentioned a DNA test, alarms went off immediately. Not because it was proven, but because it touched the one area Tamar never plays about. Now enter Mendeecees. Over the years, Tamar and Mendeecees have been linked through industry circles, mutual friends, and private events. Nothing public, nothing official, just enough proximity for rumors to quietly circulate and then disappear. Fans noticed interactions, subtle comments, and awkward moments that never made sense at the time, but were brushed off as coincidence. Mendeecees, on the other hand, has always been firm about one thing: denial. According to sources, when the claims resurfaced, his reaction was immediate and aggressive. He allegedly called the story fake, dangerous, and internet nonsense. From his side, this wasn't just gossip, it was an attack on his name and family. But here's where the emotional tension deepens. When Funky Dineva spoke, he didn't confirm a result. He didn't name a father. What he allegedly confirmed was something far more unsettling: the timeline and the existence of a conversation. That alone shifted the entire story. Because once a conversation exists, the question becomes, why? Why would a DNA test even be discussed if there was nothing to question? This is where Tamar's silence becomes powerful. People close to her say she didn't respond because she was blindsided, not just by the claim, but by who was speaking and how confident they sounded. Tamar has been through scandals before, but this felt different. This felt like something that could follow her into courtrooms, not just blogs. And then there's Tasha K. Tasha's reputation is built on saying what others won't, sometimes too far, sometimes too fast. But even her critics admit one thing: she doesn't usually go this hard unless she believes there's something real behind the scenes. According to her supporters, she didn't present this as gossip. She framed it as exposure. That distinction matters. Emotionally, this put Tamar in an impossible position. Speak up too fast, and you risk confirming something that may not even be true. Stay silent, and people assume guilt. Every move becomes a trap. By the end of part 2, one thing is clear: this story isn't about one live stream. It's about years of quiet tension, unspoken connections, and fragile reputations. And that emotional pressure is exactly what sets the stage for the main conflict, where denial, confirmation, and legal whispers collide. The moment Tasha K doubled down on her claim, the situation crossed a dangerous line, from internet chatter into full-blown conflict. This was no longer just about rumors floating in comment sections. This was about names being attached, reactions being recorded, and silence being interpreted as strategy. According to Tasha K, the DNA issue wasn't speculative. She framed it as something that had already happened behind closed doors. She spoke carefully but confidently, using phrases like documents exist, conversations were had, and this didn't come from nowhere. That alone was enough to shake the audience. Because when someone speaks that precisely, people assume there's a source. Mendeecees' response came fast. Sources say he was furious, not just defensive, but personally offended. He allegedly denied the entire situation outright, calling it reckless and false. To him, this wasn't messy gossip. It was a direct threat to his reputation, his family, and his future. His denial was strong, emotional, and immediate, which only fueled more debate. Because here's the problem with strong denials in viral situations. They don't end conversations. They start investigations. Fans began digging. Old interviews resurfaced. Social media interactions were reanalyzed. Timelines were reconstructed frame by frame. People started asking uncomfortable questions, not because proof existed, but because the story now had tension. And then came the first shocking twist. Funky Dineva didn't just comment, he clarified. He didn't say who the father was. He didn't say the result. But he allegedly confirmed that a DNA discussion did happen. That one confirmation changed everything. Because if there was nothing to test, why discuss testing at all? That question echoed across platforms. Suddenly, the narrative shifted from, "Is this fake?" to "What made this necessary?" The conflict was no longer Tasha K versus Mendeecees. It became truth versus perception. Tamar's silence became louder than any statement. Insiders claim she was advised not to speak. Not because she was guilty, but because once words are out, they can't be taken back. A single sentence could be used, twisted, or dragged into legal territory. And legal territory was exactly where this story appeared to be heading. The twist deepened when whispers started circulating that legal representatives had been contacted. Not to sue, not to accuse, but to prepare. That detail alone suggested something serious was unfolding behind the scenes. And that's when the audience realized the truth. This wasn't about proving paternity anymore. It was about protecting narratives. Everyone involved had something to lose. Reputations, families, careers. And the first shocking twist made one thing crystal clear. Someone knows more than they're saying. Backhand index pointing right, someone is scared of what could come out. And the biggest shock of all? This conflict was only just beginning. After Funky Dineva's confirmation shifted the narrative, everything escalated fast. What was once treated like messy internet talk suddenly felt too organized, too careful, and too tense to be fake. People weren't laughing anymore. They were watching closely. According to multiple sources behind the scenes, phones were ringing nonstop. Managers, lawyers, and PR teams were allegedly pulled into emergency conversations. Not to go public, but to control damage. Because once DNA and court language enter the conversation, silence stops being passive. Silence becomes strategy. Tasha K returned with more confidence. She didn't release documents. She didn't show paperwork. Instead, she did something more unsettling. She stood firm. She claimed she had verified her information through multiple channels and warned that this story would not disappear quietly. Her tone suggested she wasn't chasing attention. She was daring someone to challenge her legally. And that's when the second major twist hit. Sources began whispering that a court inquiry may already be in motion. Not a public case, not a trial, but a sealed legal process, the kind that doesn't make headlines until it has to. The implication was chilling. This wasn't about proving a rumor wrong. It was about determining how much could legally be said. Mendeecees' denial suddenly sounded different. What once felt like confidence now felt careful. Observers noticed the wording shift. Less emotion, more precision, almost as if statements were being reviewed before release. That alone raised eyebrows, because when lawyers step in, language changes. Meanwhile, Tamar's silence remained absolute. No subtweets, no Instagram lives, no vague captions, just quiet. People close to Tamar say she was devastated, not because of the rumor itself, but because of what it threatened. Her child, her peace, her privacy. This wasn't drama to her. This was her real life being turned into a storyline she never agreed to. Then came the second twist, one no one expected. An insider claimed that the DNA test was not about proving fatherhood publicly, but about ending speculation privately. If true, that reframes everything. It suggests this wasn't scandal-driven, but preventative. Something done quietly to protect a child from future rumors. That detail flipped the entire story upside down. Because if the test existed to stop lies, why did the conversation ever leak? Who benefited from exposing it? And that's when suspicion shifted, not toward Tamar, not even toward Mendeecees, but toward the people around the situation. The ones who talk. The ones who leak. The ones who profit from chaos. By the end of part 4, the audience understands something critical. This is no longer about DNA. It's about control, silence, and power. And when courts get involved, not to accuse but to contain, you know the truth is dangerous enough to stay hidden. But for how long? Once the words DNA, court, and child entered the same conversation, the public reaction changed instantly. This was no longer treated like casual celebrity gossip. Online, the tone shifted from jokes to judgment, from curiosity to concern. Fans split into camps. One side defended Tamar fiercely. They argued that even discussing a child in this way was crossing a line. To them, Tamar's silence wasn't suspicious. It was protective. They believed she was choosing her child's peace over internet chaos, and many praised her restraint. The other side wasn't convinced. They questioned why so many voices, Tasha K, funky, unnamed insiders, were all circling the same claim. For them, the silence felt heavy. Not guilty, but strategic. And in the court of public opinion, strategy often gets mistaken for truth. Social media became ruthless. Clips were cut out of context. Old interviews were replayed with new captions. Comment sections turned into mock courtrooms, where strangers argued timelines and motives like prosecutors and defense attorneys. The word allegedly disappeared, even though it mattered most. Mendeecees faced intense scrutiny as well. Despite his denial, people analyzed everything: his body language, his wording, his past. Supporters accused bloggers of harassment. Critics claimed his response felt rehearsed. Whether fair or not, his name was now permanently attached to a rumor he insisted wasn't real. Funky Dineva, meanwhile, became the center of credibility debates. Some viewers said his confirmation of a conversation made the story impossible to ignore. Others accused him of adding fuel without proof. But one thing was clear. Once Funky spoke, the story stopped being niche. It went mainstream. Emotionally, sources say Tamar was under extreme pressure. Not just from the internet, but from people around her urging different moves. Some advised a statement. Others warned that even denying could escalate things legally. Every option carried risk. Every path had consequences. And then came the quietest but loudest fallout of all: industry silence. No public support posts. No celebrity statements. No loud defenses. That kind of silence often means one thing: people are waiting to see how this ends. By the end of part 5, the emotional damage is undeniable. Even without proof, reputations are bruised. Trust is shaken. And the public has already chosen sides, even though no verdict exists. And that's the most dangerous part. Because once public opinion hardens, the truth, whatever it is, has to fight to be heard. Just when the story seemed to stall in silence, a final twist quietly surfaced, and it changed how everything was viewed. According to multiple online commentators and unnamed sources, the focus shifted away from who the child's father might be and toward a far more unsettling question: why this story resurfaced now? Timing became the mystery. not the claim itself, but the moment it was unleashed. Observers noticed something strange. The renewed push came during a period when several people involved were facing unrelated scrutiny, negotiations, or image resets. That detail alone fueled speculation that the DNA narrative may have been reactivated, not discovered. In other words, the story didn't appear, it was released. Then came the quietest bombshell of all. A legal insider allegedly hinted that the court's role wasn't to determine paternity, but to limit discussion. If true, that suggests something explosive. The legal system may not be chasing truth publicly, but preventing harm privately. Sealed conversations. Boundaries. Lines no one is allowed to cross. That reframes everything. Because if courts are stepping in to control language, not outcomes, it implies that unchecked speculation could damage a child, not just reputations. And suddenly, Tamar's silence looks less like avoidance and more like protection. Meanwhile, Tasha K's confidence remained unchanged.
She didn't backtrack.
She didn't escalate. She simply repeated that she stood by her sources. To supporters, that signaled certainty. To critics, it looked like brinkmanship, pushing right up to a legal edge without crossing it. Mendeecees stayed firm in denial, but watchers noticed one key detail. The denials never addressed why the topic existed, only that the conclusion being implied was false. That distinction kept the debate alive. And Funky? He went quiet. No follow-up. No clarification. No retraction. In stories like this, silence after confirmation can mean only one thing. Someone was told to stop talking. The cliffhanger lands hard. If the DNA test exists but isn't meant for public judgment, if courts are involved to prevent damage, not prove guilt, and if everyone is suddenly careful with their words, then the biggest question becomes unavoidable. Backhand index pointing right, what truth is so sensitive that no one wants it spoken out loud? The screen fades with one chilling line. This wasn't about finding a father. It was about protecting a child from the internet. Now the conversation is in your hands. This story was never just about a headline, a live stream, or a rumor. It was about how fast speculation turns into judgment, and how easily a child can become collateral damage in an internet war. Whether you believe the claims, doubt them, or sit somewhere in the middle, one thing is clear. Once a narrative escapes, it's almost impossible to put back.
So let's talk.
Do you believe the situation was blown out of proportion by bloggers chasing attention? Or do you think the sudden silence, careful wording, and legal whispers suggest there's more happening behind the scenes? And most importantly, where should the line be drawn when children are involved? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Keep it respectful, keep it real, and remember, real people live behind these headlines. If you appreciate coverage that breaks down patterns, timing, and motives, not just gossip, hit that like button. If you want updates on stories others are afraid to touch, subscribe now. And if you don't want to miss the next chapter, turn on notifications because this story is not finished. Share this video with someone who understands that silence can be louder than words, and that sometimes the truth isn't denied, it's protected. Because in today's world, the most dangerous stories aren't the loud ones. They're the ones everyone suddenly stops talking about. Stay alert, stay questioning, and stay tuned because the next reveal could change everything.